Columbia University is at the center of a political storm.
Why would anyone come to work at the one Ivy League university that couldn't stand up to Donald Trump?
Students protesting the war in Gaza now arrested and detained. The White House calls them threats to national security.
If you come here to vandalize a library, take over a campus, and do all kinds of crazy things, we're going to get rid of these people.
With Columbia giving in to Trump's agenda, for many, this is an attack on free speech.
We have to get out of this current administration with the First Amendment intact.
And a sign of things to come.
We're in a very different political moment in American politics, and we don't know how to fight it yet.
This is University Life after 100 days of Donald Trump. The Commander-in-Chief casts an ever-present shadow. Donald Trump's remaking of America touches every level of society, even the heights of higher education. With the White House threatening to pull the funding from universities, students and professors are taken to the streets of New York. Donald Trump accuses colleges of rampant anti-Semitism and liberal bias.
Faculty united!
But as Harvard sues the US administration, protesters have hope that academia can be saved from authoritarianism.
This is something that I don't think folks have seen since the McCarthy era.
This is McCarthyism 2.0.
I think so. When people are scared to speak out, when institutions are cowering, when the federal government feels itself so emboldened as to demand that certain speech on campus be restricted, when people are getting snatched off the street by masked federal agents for writing an op-ed, we're in dire straits.
But one university appears to have given in to Trump's demands. Here at Columbia, after months of protests about the war in Gaza, security is tight. ID scan for everyone entering, a QR code needed for visitors. It's a bit of a pain when you're trying to get guests in.
It is. But yeah, that's a pretty typical experience.
Oscar Wolf is in his second year and takes me around campus.
If I'm being entirely honest, I'm much less hopeful now than I was a year ago.
Oscar never took part in any of the demonstrations, but now has written an op-ed denouncing recent events.
I am a Jewish student, and I think that the Trump factor is affecting more people than just me. I do think it's changed the temperature on campus. One of the main causes of why I feel compelled to kind of speak up right now is because I'm not buying that the Trump administration's reason of using anti-Semitism as the justification for their actions for Columbia, I'm not buying that justification.
It was back in April last year that students protesting the war in Gaza held an encampment on Columbia's South Lawn and later occupied a nearby university building. Columbia called in the police, and these scenes were used by Donald Trump just days later to introduce a new campaign promise.
If you come here from another country and try to bring jihadism or anti-Americanism or anti-Semitism to our campuses, we will immediately deport you. You'll be out of that school. You're going to be under arrest.
With Trump now in charge, 2 Palestinian students at Columbia were detained. First, Mahmoud Khalil, a green card holder still in detention, and then Mohsen Mahdawi, also a legal resident of America. I met Mohsen last year. The White House claimed he undermined efforts to combat anti-Semitism, but today he was released, with a judge stating he'd never been charged with any crime.
To President Trump and his cabinet, yes. I am not afraid of you.
I met Mohsen alongside another student, Lishi Baker, who is pro-Israel.
We agree that a life of an Israeli child is equal to a Palestinian child.
That's pretty easy to agree on for me.
That's excellent. Yeah.
2 people on different sides, now in very different circumstances. You know Mohsen.
I know.
We both know Mohsen. Do you think it was right what happened to him?
I think a judge is going to make the determination about what can or can't happen to him, and it's not my position to kind of make a preemptive legal judgment about what's a really complicated issue.
But the government is saying that it's because people like Mahmoud Khalil, people like Mohsen, are a threat to national security and the foreign policy of the US. You know Mohsen. Do you think he's a threat?
I don't know everything about Mohsen. I've had good interactions with him. I've had negative interactions with him. He's a complicated person.
But are you worried, though, at all, that that might send a message of what might come next?
That what might send
that if what happens to Mohsen can happen to other people?
Everyone will get due process, because that's the way that it works in this country. So if you're looking for like a history of Israel, this is really accessible.
Lishi believes that it's still not entirely safe for Jewish students on campus. And that's why the White House withdrew $400 million of federal funding to Columbia. The university agreed to address allegations of anti-Semitism and make other changes to get its money back. An anti-Semitism task force at the university has already released 2 reports.
The great majority were Jewish students who would sort of identify as Zionists, and they were feeling quite uncomfortable with their lives on the campus. We advocate that you be aware that things you say about Israel and Zionism will fall heavily onto the souls of many Jewish students in ways that you might not have expected in advance. We want you to be aware of that. That's not the same as a speech ban or a criticism ban.
So is your point there then that when you try to come up with a definition like that, that it is being taken out of context by people on campus, by the Trump administration, by others?
I don't think it's fair to those students to say, but whatever we say might fall into the wrong hands or be misused. So therefore we're not going to talk about it. If I didn't think there was a problem here, I wouldn't have accepted the assignment.
No ICE, no KKK, no fascist USA.
Pro-Palestine protests still take place, with students wearing face masks for fear of the consequences. Because it's now not just about the war in Gaza, but Columbia's capitulation to the White House. The university says it will review its courses and hire a security force, and so many believe this is creating an unsafe environment.
And there is no manner in which it is wrong to use your voice and cry out for justice.
Aharon Dardik is a member of the group Jews for Ceasefire and a friend of Mohsen's. He believes that this is an attack on freedom of speech.
I have tremendous privilege to be a Jew on this campus and to be an American citizen. And as a result, I can show my face, I can do these interviews in ways that many other people can't. And so if they are on a green card, if they're not a citizen, or if they are a person of color, they're at much greater risk of being persecuted.
The US government has been revoking hundreds of international student visas, with the Secretary of State calling activists lunatics. That has forced some into hiding.
I'm very fearful. I'm very fearful.
This international student wanted to remain anonymous, worried that her pro-Palestine activism could make her a target of immigration officials.
I do think twice about everywhere I'm going. I basically don't go to campus. Like, I'm terrified of ICE raids, right? Right after Mahmoud Khalil was taken, it was really scary to go outside.
You were born abroad, but you've lived here for a long time. How do you feel about America now and where it's going?
I don't know if I want to stay in this country. I would feel bad to leave just because it gets hard. But I'm not attached to the idea of staying here.
In this climate, professors are also speaking out.
It's easy to be angry, and it's hard to figure out what peace actually looks like.
Believing that Columbia has allowed the MAGA agenda to have too much power on campus.
Sooner or later, everyone's going to wake up and notice that Trump has disassembled civil society and education in this country, and that he said it was because of the Jews. Like, this kind of repression is only going to drive prejudice.
But it's a larger culture war. And in that culture war, what MAGA republicanism cares about is actually not anti-Semitism. But once they get that wedge, right, one of the main demands is going after diversity, equity, inclusion. They're banning books, anything that mentions interracial marriage, anything that mentions slavery in American history. I feel like we're in a very different political moment in American politics, and we don't know how to fight it yet.
You're deporting us instead.
As these professors look out at a campus in turmoil, a protest takes place at the closed college gates. Students against the war in Gaza, but also defending free speech and their university's independence. Welcome to 100 days of Donald Trump.